Hi guys, it's the Gin and Tonic Show. It is Friday. It is 8 o'clock p.m. in London, in the UK. I'm laughing because I'm trying to get a video going here, and I can't get the audio going. So, and I'm late, and everything is not well at the moment. So I'm so angry, but I didn't have time to test it because I'm late. Welcome, Thunder. How are you doing today, my man?
Hi guys, I'm okay. I've had an interesting week. It's good to be back on the show on Friday. Something to look forward to, and a little change of dynamics. And I'm looking forward to what you've got in store for this week's lots.
I don't know, your microphone is sounding a little bit funny.
No, my microphone's not funny. I don't think it is. There's an echo and a delay.
Okay, so is this me then? Let me just go because I've been playing around. I think I know what it is. This is me. This is me. Okay, now the echo should be gone because I've been playing around with different audio settings to try and get this stupid video on audio, and I have failed miserably. And this is why there was an echo. The echo should be gone now. Okay, so you've had an interesting week. Is there anything that you want to let us know, or is this just interesting?
It's just interesting from my point of view. My work situation has changed. I now work from home as opposed to going into the office. So it's a new experience as a 52-year-old man to work from the place that you live. So in that sense, it's been interesting.
Okay. Oh, I've been doing that for decades, so I know what it's like.
I don't find it comfortable at all, to be honest. I'm a traditionalist. You go out to work, you come home to rest, to get away from work, and now it seems I can't get away from work.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know. I find it quite okay. I don't have a problem with it. I know how to sort of separate between the two, and that's it. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to you lovely people out there who are listening to the Gin and Tonic Show, who are interested in Islam. Stops from using GUIs. Yeah, this is two worlds collide. All right, ladies, gents, and others. What are we? Who are we? What do we do? Why are we doing what we are doing, and why don't we do something else? Well, it's just that we're interested in Islam. We're interested in helping others understand Islam. And this is why we are focusing on Islam. We don't go off and criticize any other ideologies because we are focusing on Islam. Now, that does not mean that we are attacking Muslims or that we are trying to insult all Muslims on the planet. That is not our intention. What we try and do is we try and analyze the text, we try and analyze claims, we try and analyze what is happening inside Islam. It can happen that we criticize a particular person for being dishonest or for making unfounded claims. This is very possible, absolutely, yes. This is not something that we should be sorry for, but that does not mean that we are spreading hate or anything like that. So, yeah. Now, we are a little bit different than normal Dawa channels. We're a little bit different than religious channels because here we have, well, reasonably free speech. I think you can say just about anything here, except if you go and incite violence. It's a little bit different than in the outside world. In the outside world, you have a lot of restrictions now because you're not allowed to say, I hate this and this for some odd reason. Now, if I hate ads, why shouldn't I say I hate ads? There's nothing wrong with that. Hate is just another emotion. There's nothing wrong with hating advertisements, which is what I do. So I don't think that I should be censored or in any way attacked for hating ads. Okay, this is just me. But anything else you can say here. So, if you want to come in here and you want to correct, you want to comment, you want to criticize, you want to whatever you want to do, you're welcome to do so. Either you do this on the live show in the chat where you can just type, have discussions with other people or whatever, and ask us questions at the end of the show. I try and put in a short segment where we go and we chat to each other. Then you can come here on the panel if you want to have any kind of topic that you want to discuss, that you want to present to others as in the form of a lecture or something. You're welcome to do so. This goes especially to Muslims. A lot of Muslims can't understand this because they will never let an atheist talk freely on one of their shows. But here it's a little bit different. So here you can actually do that. The other way is then afterwards you can just go and watch it in the archive. So you can do this on YouTube. You can do this on Facebook. I just received a message that the Facebook thing is expiring. I need to renew this. I don't know how many, every few months you need to do this again. So we use facts, we use reality, we use reasoning, and we categorically condemn any kind of abuse, any kind of oppression, any kind of misogyny, any kind of violence, and definitely any kind of slavery. We just try and be decent human beings. Now, we let the Quran speak for itself. Okay, we try not to go to the thousands of scholars or thousands of hadiths or scholars who only go and say things about the seerah or whatever. So we try not to do that. So don't go to Patreon, don't go to PayPal. It's free. So today is the 3rd of July. And since it's a new month, we have a new theme, which is Dawa in action. So what we do is we first go and take a couple of items from the news. And because I was so joke, I was a bit of a hurry. So I only had like 15 minutes to find things. So if this is a trifle too boring, well then, yep, my fault. So a headline says, requiring face masks to fight COVID-19 while upholding a niqab ban shows irony lost on leaders. Yeah, this is quite funny, I find, because if I'm wearing a mask, I am protecting others from my droplets when I'm speaking, coughing, sneezing, or anything. I am protecting others from what I do. Whereas the people wearing a niqab are protecting themselves from outside views. They are putting a barrier between themselves and the outside world. You're not allowed to show things like your neck or your hair or something like that. With a face mask, all you're doing is you're covering your mouth and your nose. And when COVID-19, when the virus itself, okay, SARS-CoV-2, when this virus disappears, we can go and take off the face masks. Whereas the people who are wearing a niqab are not allowed to do that. You need to remember that there are women in Iran, for example, in the Islamic Republic of Iran, who are wearing chador, and the chador actually leaves the face uncovered, but even that is too much for the women there. They don't like this covering. They don't like all this rigmarole around it. So they want to take it off, and they are prepared to go to jail just to not wear this chador. So people who come to me and saying, well, you're being a hypocrite because you're wearing a face mask and you don't want women to wear the niqab. It's something very different, fundamentally different. Thunder, what were you told as a Muslim? What were you told at that time? Why you absolutely must wear, or women, why must they wear this demeaning apparel or whatever you want to call it?
Well, it was never said something directly as to why. It was more sort of like what was said in between words. It was implied that Westerners were cheap meat, if you were. They were there for the taking. They were trampy. They were whores. They were slags. Those kind of pejoratives, and that somehow Muslim women dressed in that kind of way, wearing a headscarf and such, were seen as deemed as pious. They were more clean. They were more virtuous. So sometimes not everything was said in a religious context; it was said in a cultural context. But we all knew what they meant. So not so directly, so overtly, but what they didn't realize was some of those girls that were wearing the hijab, the niqab, and all these things. That they wear it in front of the community, but they're not quite like that when they're away from the community.
Yeah.
It's a bit like when it's Ramadan and some of the men are fasting and they're screwing their face saying I'm fasting today, but most of them are going down the local McDonald's, or McDonald's elsewhere and eating there. They're not really doing it, It's not as if religion has the, if you like, the grip on them that they appear that the impression that they give to society around the world.
And of course, the threat is always that Thor's thunderous hammer is going to come down on those who don't. Yeah, but it's true. They're being told they are being immoral, and that modesty is equal to covering yourself. I don't understand where this comes from. I don't know why people think that a nun is better off than like a woman dressed what I call normal. I don't understand that. And how people are comparing a nun to what the fashion sense is in Islam for women, I don't understand either. Because a nun is definitely not part of society. She's not part of a family. She will never have children. She will never have a husband and things like that. So, how can you do that? How can you be so dishonest and compare a nun to a person, a woman wearing a stupid niqab or burqa or something like that? Okay, the second item I found is that the Nashville Tennessean, the largest newspaper in the state, published a full page ad from a far right client which said Islam is going to detonate a nuclear device in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's accompanied by photos of Donald Trump and Pope Francis. And this is, it shows it's not only crazy lunatics only in Islam. Yes, the majority, 99% of all terrorists today are Muslims for some odd reason. But you also get lunatics in other areas, especially the far right, who are now taking this Trump, I don't know what you call it, I hesitate to call it administration, the Trump chaos team. And they're saying, well, he accepts everything that is far right, so why shouldn't I be far right? So this is really strange. So I don't know. It's quite crazy how somebody would come up with this idea to put an ad that there's going to be a nuclear bomb going up in Nashville, Tennessee. And yeah, this is so weird. Okay, then the last item I found was the Hagia Sophia, the Hagia Sophia, which is a church turned into a mosque, turned into a museum. And again, it's at the heart of an ideological battle because it's a huge complex. It's not just one building. It's several. It's in Istanbul on a hill. It's beautiful. Okay, it appeals to my sense of architecture, whatever. I love the style. I like what it looks like. If you go inside, it's simply magnificent. I've been a couple of times, and I've always been like completely overwhelmed. So it's amazing. But now Turkey has decided that when this, well, I mean, it's a secularized building. In other words, it's a museum. It's no longer supposed to be a mosque or a church. So they said, let's meet in the middle, let's make it a museum. Let's secularize it. And now Turkey has decided that this was symbolic. So Erdogan, the dictator, come president, come king, come I don't know what he is in Turkey, is now rallying to reverse this decision. He wants to make it a mosque again because he's appealing to the religious, because he's losing on the economy front, he's losing on all fronts. And of course people realize that. And there's the young what academia, if you want to call it that, who are saying, no, we want reforms, we don't want Islam, we don't want to go back 1400 years. So they don't agree with him. But the thing is, he's quite brutal. So he's taking control of the media, he's taking control of everything, and anything that you say is immediately taken and turned against you, so that if you criticize anything, you simply disappear. So, anything that you've heard this week, Thunder?
No,
Sorry, Thor's thunderous hammer.
no, I've just been listening to the Muslim and Islamic responses after the conversation between Yasir Qadhi and Mo Hijab about the if you was to write the Quran and to match it in heaven, what would you write? And nobody knows. And the 31 versions of the Quran that we have. And I've just been listening more, focusing on the backlash of that, because I see that as being something significant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the only attention I've been paying. I did watch the news article about Erdogan wanting to turn the museum back into a mosque, and my initial thoughts were, well, if that's your attitude, then you won't mind so much in other countries that are non-Muslim when they take back their churches and their halls and such and return them back to the return those mosques that are now mosques back into the buildings for use that they were originally.
Oh, okay. Like in Spain, yeah, of course.
So if you're going to have that attitude around the world, then we can do the same thing back. Also not we. I don't mean we. I mean other countries reserve the right to do the same thing to those buildings that are now mosques. Return them back to synagogues. Return them back to churches. Return them back to temples. Return them back to political halls or whatever.
Yeah, it gets quite absurd, doesn't it? So it's quite silly, I think. Instead of giving, I don't know why people can't live in peace. Why can't people live in harmony and just sort
Oh,
of
they do.
let it be, and that's it?
They do stop. It's just that the religion of Islam comes in and causes a schism. We're not having this conversation about mosques, sorry, about churches. We're not having this conversation about temples or gurdwaras or any other kind of religious building. We're talking about yet again Islam, this plague, this malignant manifestation of Islam that is causing schism no matter where it makes its presence known in the world. That's what we're talking about. So when you say why can't people live in peace, two things cause problems: politics and commercial activity with politics, and the religion of peace. Sorry, the religion of Islam.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, what is so sick is that Islam activists suddenly go and blow up Buddhist statues which have been around for thousands of years. Why would you do that? For me, this is so useless. I mean, it's not the symbol as such as a religion. If something has been standing there, I mean, you can take the pyramids. The pyramids are symbols of gods. Okay, you need to face it. But I don't think, and I think somebody in was it in ISIS actually said, yeah, we need to go and blow up the pyramids. So, well, the Quran claims that all these monuments have already been destroyed. So it's another mistake in the Quran, because obviously the pyramids are still there, as is the Sphinx, as are some other statues which they've left alone so far. But it's true. It's mainly Islam that goes, and it doesn't really matter whether it's a heritage, whether it's some old cultural thing. No, they don't care. If it depicts something that they don't like, poof, kill it, destroy it. That's the only thing that they have. They have no tolerance, absolutely no tolerance. Yeah, it's quite strange. You're right.
And then they'll see that as a victory by Allah when they do these absurd things as well. I mean, as far as the pyramids are concerned, I mean, I made that comment a couple of weeks ago to colleagues at work with the Black Lives Matter movement when they were tearing down statues of people that were linked to slavery. And I thought to myself, well, if you're going to do that, are you going to be closing down the schools where the funds of those schools were the product of slavery? Will you be tearing down monuments to Nelson Mandela, a disgraceful, hypocritical communist, or Mahatma Gandhi? He too had no respect for black people when he lived in South Africa. Where's your cutoff point in all of this? And that my attitude towards that is related to my attitude towards Islam. Where's your cutoff point? If you can start doing this, at what point do you? Where's your line? With Islam, there is no line. If there is no line with Islam, they say they're a religion of peace. Well, of course they are. They just need to establish it by when they remove every other religion that's an obstacle, then they'll have peace on their terms.
Yeah. This is so strange. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. I have to confess that I didn't do my bit with the Quran this week. There's too many things happening. So, what I suggest we do, we just go through a couple of lines in a live manner. At least we will cover a couple of things in the Quran. Then, okay, hang on. That should be big enough, right?
Yeah.
Now, we left off here is you need to pray, and he's the best, the biggest, and blah blah blah, the most stable genius of them all. And didn't somebody say? No, he claimed. Trump actually claimed that his name is what, Donald Trump, but he has a middle initial J, which is like Donald Jesus Trump. Oh, that guy is such a joke. Okay, so Abraham. This is chapter 4, sentence number 74. And it goes, Lo, Abraham said to his father Azar, Takest thou, yeah, takest thou idols for gods? I see thee and thy people in manifest error. So Abraham says to his father that he's wrong. So also did we show Abraham the power and the laws of heavens and the earth, that he might have certitude. Certitude, I suppose, means certainty, that he is sure that he knows what is correct and what is not. So Abraham says his father is wrong, and we showed Abraham what is right. So he's quite wrong, quite right to tell his father that he's wrong. And then, when the night covered him over, I don't know how that works. So the night covers you over, and then Abraham saw a star, and he says, This is my Lord. But no, this is the Father. He, capital He, is normally reserved for God, but I think in this case, capital He is the Father. Or is this Abraham? I don't know. Would Abraham say, This is my Lord, when he sees a star? Isn't Abraham the one who was sure that he knew exactly who his God was? Okay, in the Quran, it seems he doesn't. But I'm not sure if it's talking about who this he is, if this is Abraham or his father. So he saw a star and he says, This is my Lord. But when it's said, he says, Nah, I love not those that set. So it's not God.
Okay, two things on that. First of all, who is Azar?
The father of Abraham.
But the father of Abraham is Terah.
Well, not in the Quran.
But as far as Jews and Christians are concerned, the father of Abraham is Terah. Now, we can't say it's a mistranslation or a mispronunciation, because every other, more or less, the other characters in the Bible or previous scripture, they don't have problems with translating the name there. So where has Muhammad got this name from, Azar? Because this will be one of the reasons there's a schism between the Jews and Muhammad, because he got the name of Abraham's father wrong. Azar, who is Azar? Terah is the name of the father of Abraham in the Bible.
Well, maybe the excuse is going to be that, what is it, Terah in in Arabic is Azar.
Okay, so why is Terah, or is it though? Or is it? Is Terah Azar in Arabic? Or have they just deliberately inserted that because they recognize there's a mistake there? Because how can you, these other lesser people in other scriptures, the Quran seems to get Jesus's name or Moses' name or Abraham or David or Isaac or Ishmael, doesn't have a problem with the main character names. I know there's questions on Jesus, Isa and Yeshua. I get that, but Azar is a lesser character. Why is there question marks over the pronunciation or the translation of that name? And I would say Muslims have inserted Azar as meaning Terah, and that Azar Muhammad got from somewhere else because he didn't know what he was talking about.
That could well be. That could very well be. I mean, look at the mess they made with Miriam.
Yeah,
come on, that's a huge thing. So,
okay. And just go back to 76. It says there, the night covered him over. He saw a star. He said, "This is my Lord." when Seti said, I love not those. Now, what age are we talking about here? Because already the person that we're speaking about here, whether it's Azar or whether it's Abraham, either, already this person has the ability to consciously think. He has language. So by the time he's already speaking like this, he should have worked out whether stars and moons or whatever set and sunrise or sunset, surely.
Yes, this is really for simpletons. Yeah, it's a fairy tale. This is a
I know that,
children's
you
fairy
know that,
tale.
but this is just because I haven't revised any of this material for this week, like you have been busy. And just looking at it straight away, my first reaction is, well, how can it, even at what age are we talking about? Whatever age you are, if you're already capable of formulated sentences like this, then you'll already know what the movement of the celestial objects are. You'll have already
Mm,
seen sunsets and sunrises before this. This
yes.
is just wrong.
Now, I cannot see the chat. Do you have the possibility to keep an eye on the chat?
I will do. I will do. I do.
Because a lot of times when we are asking questions here, there are people who have an explanation. So if we say, who's Azar, why is it not Terra? Maybe somebody has had a suggestion. So it would be useful just to keep an eye on this. Okay, so Abraham or I don't know if this is God, Abraham or Azar, the he, capital He. I don't know. He said, this is my Lord, but I love not those that set. So when he saw the moon rising, he said, this is my Lord. But when the moon set, he said, well, unless my Lord guide me, I shall surely be among those who go astray. So no, he's not into the moon either. Then he saw the sun rising, also in splendor, and he said, this is my Lord, this is the greatest of all. But when the sun set, he says, oh, my people, I am indeed free from your guilt of giving partners to Allah. So he turns away from that as well. So he's not going to take a star as God. He's not going to take a moon as God. He's not going to take a sun as God. And I think these are references to different kinds of religions, to different kind of pagans, different kinds of people who are worshipping sun, moon, and stars and things like that. I think
And
this is just a guilt trip.
I think you won't be far wrong from there, because when you look back in history, I think it's not an unknown piece of knowledge, or when it said in Islam that Allah was also represented by the crescent-shaped moon, pre-Muhammadan times. So the thought of celestial objects being worshipped in pagan Arabian times, you're probably bang on point there.
Whoa, somebody agrees with me. What's wrong today? Okay, 79. For me, I have set my face firmly and truly towards him who created the heavens and the earth, and never shall I give partners to Allah. Great. Okay, I think I don't need to explain anything. Shall we leave it there or shall we take another 10?
Shall we take another 10? We're going through this quite smoothly, I think. So I think another 10, if you're okay with another 10.
Okay. And maybe by then Rob will have caught up with us, so maybe he can tell me again how to get the stupid audio going on the separate tab, because for some odd reason I've forgotten. Oh, if anybody remembers in StreamYard how to get the audio going on a separate tab, please let me know, because I've forgotten. I explained it to Rob the other day, and I've completely forgotten how I did it. I can't remember what I clicked, where I was able to click on separate tab audio. I can't find it today. So if anybody has an idea, let me know. All right, then let's go to 80. His people disputed with him. He said, come ye to dispute with me about Allah when he himself hath guided me? I fear not the beings ye associate with Allah. Unless my Lord willeth, nothing can happen. My Lord comprehendeth in his knowledge all things. Will ye not yourselves be admonished? Okay, this is just special pleading. How can you argue with me if I have my knowledge straight from God?
Yeah.
If it's straight from God, I must be right. So you can't do anything about that. So don't go and associate anything with Allah, because unless my God willeth, Nothing will happen. Now, 81. How should I fear the beings you associate with Allah when you fear not to give partners to Allah with... Jesus, can I change translation? I can't remember which one I've selected here.
I think
Is
you've got
this
the
the
use of
Pickthall?
valid.
Is this Pickthall or something? Okay, how should I fear the beings ye associate with Allah when ye fear not to give partners to Allah without any warrant having been given to you? Which of all two parties hath more right to security? All right, sorry, I pass. Tell me if you know. Yeah, that's what I want to. How should I fear what you associate? In other words, how should I fear the sun when you fear not to give partners to Allah without any warrant having been given to you? How should I fear what you associate with God? So how should I fear the sun when you fear not to give the sun to Allah without any warrant having been given to you? Okay, sorry, I don't get it. Do you get this?
No, I don't.
Okay. And I'm not going to switch around now between. I will need to do this again next week. Look into this. This is what I normally do. I go look at 5 different translations, and I go look at the tafsir and everywhere just to get some sense out of this. Okay, if it is those who believe and confuse not their beliefs with wrong that are in security, for they are on guidance. Okay, so if you believe, then you're A for away. You go okay. That was the reasoning about us. Who's us? That was the reasoning about us. I think us is now God again.
This is
Which,
the plurality that I keep saying, that I don't think Muhammad quite understood from what he heard from the Jewish text when it says that's the plurality, because it says there. Yeah, sorry, carry on. I interjected there.
no, can't hide.
Uh,
That was the reasoning about us. So it must be a group which we gave to Abraham, or it's the plural that you said, to use against his people. We raise whom we will, degree after degree, for thy Lord is full of wisdom. Now, if this is God talking, that was the reasoning about us. So, okay, me, God, I'm telling you, listen, we gave Abraham the ammunition, the knowledge, and I am the God. I am going to raise whom I will. When and degree after degree, it's up to me. Because your Lord is full of wisdom and knowledge. So your Lord is probably me. So because me is full of wisdom and knowledge. Or unless there's another God. Whatever. This is one of those things where the Quran is completely, absolutely useless.
Well, you won't be the first. This show won't be the first, and this language and this culture, we won't be the first, if you like, that have come to the conclusion with when reading the Quran. It's not consistent. It's not. It jumps. It's spasmodic. It's gibberish. It doesn't make much in the way of sense. Even these passages now, and all you're getting, what I'm getting from this, is just a repeat or a regurgitation of something that's already been said previously in previous
Yeah.
chapters. Not getting anything new here. There's no new information. There's no new revelation. There's no law. There's nothing in history being mentioned here about something that's happened in the past. There's no historical context of something happening that's happening in the present, and it looks like, and we're not getting anything about the future from this. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, if these verses or these ayah are in heaven, the uncreated words of Allah in heaven, written on stone tablets, and then several thousand years later, the angel gibberish comes down and gives them to Muhammad. I'm thinking, where is the benefit in this? What is the advantage? Where is the advancement? How has this improved Muslims of Muhammad's day or Muslims of today? Where is the benefit? And I see none. I see just a repeated regurgitation of gibberish.
And especially if you go, if you switch on critical thinking, this thing is complete rubbish. Because that was the reasoning about us. In other words, about us, about me, God, okay, there is some reasoning that concerns me, which I gave to Abraham to use against his people. Now, I created those people. So I'm creating Abraham. I'm creating people I know who are going to be against Abraham. And then I give Abraham the reasoning from me, which he then uses against the people that I created against his people. Where's the logic in this? Where is the consistency? Where is this? Exactly what you just said. There's no consistency. There's gibberish.
And there's no narrative of what caused this situation, why is the situation there, and what is the conclusion. It's just like an empty, vacuous statement of something that has no relevance.
And if you look at the reasoning, I mean, we've just had 3 sentences which just say, well, no, you shouldn't worship the sun, you shouldn't worship the stars, you shouldn't worship the moon, you should only worship me. And that is the reasoning. That's it. It's just claims. You can't associate anything with me. I'm the one. I'm the best. I'm the bestest of all the best, and that's not reasoning. It's just making claims, unsubstantiated claims. So the reasoning is not reasoning. About us is not about us. It's telling you don't worship the sun, don't worship the moon, don't worship stars. So it's about other things. You did not give this to Abraham because I didn't see that you gave it to Abraham. And why against his people? It didn't say that all his people were against him. Some of the people were with him. And then again, to brag, to strut, we raise whom we will, degree after degree, for the Lord is full of wisdom and knowledge. If you're a God, you don't need this. Why would you, a God, need to tell people what a great guy you are? You don't. Like, Superman doesn't strut and walk around and say, look what I can do. I can go and stomp my feet and then the buildings will shake or something stupid like that. You don't need to because you can. And if you can, you don't need to show it anymore. So this is like a midget who's saying, "Ooh, I'm so great. I'm so..." This is so stupid. Okay, 84. We gave him Isaac and Jacob. Now, why Isaac and Jacob? I don't understand him. So, Abraham is given, this is back now to Abraham, right? So, we gave him reasoning, and we gave him Isaac and Jacob, all 3 guided. All 3, is that including Abraham?
Yeah.
And then, before him, we guided Noah, and David, Solomon, Job, Joseph, Moses, Aaron. Thus we do reward those who do good. We gave him, and before him we guided. We gave him Isaac and Jacob. So he got 2 sons. Okay, what about Ishmael?
I was just going to say, Jacob was years later. I don't know where Ishmael is in all of this. But I'm sure at some point in the Quran we'll get Ishmael will raise his head. It has
Okay,
to.
before him, why does he have to do this? Why does the Quran say we guided Noah? No, you did not. There are people thousands of years before you who claimed Noah is a prophet of somebody totally different.
But
He is the starter of humanity.
But he's trying to appeal, isn't it? This is yet again one of those political appeals to the people that are going to be listening, which are the Jews and the Christians. So he's appealing to both of them there by appealing to those Jewish prophets. If you appeal to the Jewish prophets, you're going to be pulling in the Jewish as the Christian audience as well, because they subscribe to those prophets too.
So throwing around known names makes you seem better because you are not against what it is that you are believing, but you encompass them.
The thing is, what you wouldn't have known is that Noah got drunk, David committed adultery, and David also tried to get the wife of Bathsheba that her husband killed. Solomon married umpteen wives against the scriptures and pretty much became an apostate. Job suffered immensely. He lost his business, he lost his children, and he lost his health before regaining them. Joseph, well, I think he does mention Joseph going into slavery. Moses was a killer as well. He murdered a man.
Joseph, the whole story of Joseph is in the Quran. The entire chapter 12 is a word for word almost repetition of the story of Joseph.
which is the only one, because these other men have done things like Aaron. He allowed the nation of Israel to build a calf when they came out of the Egyptian bondage. But it says that we reward those who do good. Now, he's not mentioned anything of what's happened in those men's lives, but he's not mentioned any of the good things either. He's just yet again just grabbed some names of the popular characters of the Hebrew scriptures and trying to appeal to them on an emotional level.
Wasn't Moses an asshole? Wasn't he quite a I don't know, a strict slave owner or something like this? Didn't something at the back of my mind says Moses was actually quite a bad guy.
No, not from what I've read. I don't know what you've read, but not from
I don't
what
know what I've read. Anyway, that he shouldn't actually be in there, that he is being disowned for what he did in those days. Okay, and here we then get Zechariah and John and Jesus and Elias, all the ranks of the righteous, and here we have Ishmael and Elisha. Who is Elisha?
Elisha.
Elisha.
So now, right, 84 was appeal to the Jews and the Christians, and then 85 was the appeal to the Christians.
And Jonas and Lot. And we gave favor above the nations. Well, if you go, I just know the one story with Lot, that he got drunk every night and had sex with his daughters.
Or his daughters got him drunk and he had sex with two of them, yeah.
Yeah. And to them, to their fathers and progeny and brethren, we chose them and we guided them to a straight way. No, you didn't. I mean, come on, this Lot guy gave his daughters to a mob so that they can have sex with them, and then you call him righteous. I'm sorry, that is not what I call righteous. And that's not, we gave favor above the nations. No. This is terrible.
Just to TDS Dave that's in the chat, he said that Job's suffering all caused by God. Well, actually, if you read Job chapters 1, 2, and 3, God didn't cause the suffering; He allowed it. There's a difference between allowing it and causing it. So, just a clarification on that point, and that's in Job 1.
Okay.
Anyway, so moving forward, then, I mean, yeah, this is just a political appeal. This is all this is to me. I'm reading this and thinking, I'm trying to.
Yeah, this is, come on, let's be pally. We like the same people. So, if you want to take your prophets, you can keep them. We also like them. And all you need to do is just add one more, and that's Muhammad.
Yeah.
And then you're A for away.
And
this is the guidance. Sorry,
and you'll notice that many of these prophets that are written here, as we go through the Quran and the Hadith, Muhammad cleverly molds them in his image, or so he will try and twist a story about them that fits his circumstance, past, present, or future tense, as his life course is moving forward as a prophet. So he's making them feel like, I'm not just like that guy. I'm not just like that guy. I'm like all of these guys. I am all of the prophets rolled up into one.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, come on, if that's what you want to do, you want to impress the guys around you, of course. So, this is the guidance of Allah. He giveth that guidance to whom he pleaseth of his worshippers. If they were to join other gods with him, all that they did would be vain for them. It's the same thing again. Same story. I'm going to help you if I want. If not, well, then tough shit, you're on your own. And if you are going to join other gods, then this is not going to help you at all. You need to go and trust me. And look, I've given you all these nice names. Now you need to worship me. The funny thing is that I can't remember how many there are. I think 2 unique prophets in Islam. That's it. All the others were just copied. I think it was 2. I can't remember the exact number. So everything else is just taken from Torah and Bible. That's it.
Yeah.
These were the men to whom we gave the book and authority and prophethood. If these, their descendants, reject them, behold, we shall entrust their charge to a new people who reject them not. Here we go from goody, and look, I'm so nice, and we're all speaking the same language, and we worship the same people. Yeah, but hang on, if you don't, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, this is like if you respected them and you followed them, then you have to follow me, because basically by following me, you're following them.
And if not, I'm going to replace you with people until all the people do what I tell them to do. Okay, and then the last one, those were the prophets who received Allah's guidance. Copy the guidance they received. No reward for this do I ask of you. This is no less than a message for the nations. Okay. There we go. Was that enlightening now? I don't know. Why do people take this seriously? I really don't understand. I don't know why. Quite strange. All right. We have left behind the news. We've done Quran chapter 74. Let me quickly write this down to 90, so I will have to translate them during the week. And we now come to the theme of the month, which is a new theme. So the theme for July is apologists, in other words, Dawa in action. In other words, what? Because we've looked at apologists, we've looked at the messages, we've looked at the various contents, the things that is being transmitted or held dearly or whatever. This month we're going to go and look at how this is being transmitted to people. So what is it? What kind of tactics do they use when transmitting the message of Islam? This Dawah is an invitation to Islam. It's supposed to be a convincing message that will draw you into Islam. In other words, it's just a bunch of lies which is being distributed to people who simply don't know enough about it and are not given the time. And you will notice that they will go very quickly and say, look, Islam is so wonderful, and we have Jesus, and we have David and Solomon and Noah and Lot and all these other people. And now if you repeat after me, here's the Shahada, and then you're going to be in the club. Without giving them a possibility of reading the fine print, and without demanding a PhD in ancient Arabic. It's only when you criticize that you need a PhD in ancient Arabic with 15 years of study or something. Then you're allowed to criticize, but not when you join. Join, anybody can join. But as soon as you want to leave, as soon as you want to criticize, oh dear, no, then it's different.
And if you did criticize after you've learned Arabic, then you were never really Muslim in the first place, or you're from the wrong sect of Islam and such. So they've got all bases covered.
It's true. And come on, let's face it. Islam is actually quite clever, and I think this is why it's survived for so long. What happens is that the Dawa thing is, look, usually it's Pascal's wager. Okay, so why don't you believe? Because if you don't believe, you might be in for a surprise. And if you do believe, well, then you haven't lost anything. You've led a good life, and your God's been, very going to be pleased with you. And that is so stupid, that is so ridiculous, saying that, gods are stupid. And oh, Rob is here. Good evening, sir.
Gentlemen, good evening, viewers. How's everybody?
Okay. Can you help me out quickly before we do anything else?
Of course. Can you hear me? Am I coming through?
Yeah.
Cool.
I forgot how to put audio into a video that I'm showing.
So if you click on share
tab.
screen and you choose Chrome tab, then in the bottom left-hand corner is share audio. Very bottom left-hand corner.
There it is. And I was looking for this shit. I've been panicking here, and I was the one who showed you this, and I've forgotten. I couldn't remember where this stupid tick had.
Are you getting young? Are you getting young on us?
Oh, yes. It's like, okay, I need to take my calcium pills or something. Thanks, Rob. Okay, so I was just saying that people say, well, if you don't believe, well, then you might be in deep shit, and if you do, then you haven't lost anything. But there's so many problems with this because, they are assuming that their gods are stupid, really stupid, idiotic fools who don't know what you're thinking, who can't see that you're just pretending. And if you pretend that you believe and just to please the people around you, you shouldn't be able to please a God. And if you are pleasing or if you are fooling a God by doing that, then that shouldn't be called a God. Okay, so you're really shitting yourself here. Then there's lots of things, and then you don't know which God and blah blah blah. So Pascal's wager is a bad thing, but this is how they normally catch the attention of people. And then what they do is then there's a whole host of different arguments that the Dawa people provide to others. The main thing is normally that they're saying, well, you did not create yourself. Where did you come from? Shifting the burden of proof to the one that is listening, making you feel like you are the one who now needs to justify yourself. And this is where they're shifting the goalpost, they're shifting the burden of proof, they're doing all sorts of things, building up a straw man. There are so many logical fallacies that they commit here that it's absolutely amazing if you go and listen to them. If you listen to somebody like Hijab, for example, this is what he likes doing. He throws up like nonsensical stuff, and then he says, well, have you read the definition? And then you need to go and look at words, and yeah, but you don't know what this is. And suddenly you're talking about words, and you're no longer talking about the issue. So there's a lot of things there. So they're misleading people in unsuspecting victims, and trying to get them to say this Shahada that they don't understand. And a lot of people, I mean, come on, every normal person will immediately say, well, hang on, why are we switching to Arabic? I don't understand Arabic. Can't we do this in English? And what is it that I'm letting myself in for? What are the consequences of what it is that I am doing now? But as we saw the last time when we were looking at this Dawa in action, there are, well, I mean, that was staged, but there are a lot of credulous people, gullible people who are quite primitive, who are a bit childish, who will react to things like that. And I mean, there's childish arguments. Who was it who just brought this up? I think this was Ridwan, the apostate prophet, who showed, and there are people like that who say that you have lines in the palm of your hands that you can. I mean, everybody has sort of different ones, but there are some common factors, and you can make the one into an upside down V and then a line. Now, the upside down V in Arabic numerals represents an 8. And then the line presents a 1. I don't know why people say that the numerals that we use are Arabic. They're not, because the 8 is nowhere near an upside down V. And then on the other side, you have also the line, and which would be the 1, and then an upside down V. So this time it would be a 1 and an 8. So what they're doing, and now you need to listen to this is great. So in the left you have the 8 and the 1, which is 81, and in the other one you have the 1 and the 8, which is 18. Now if you add the 81 and the 18, what is that? 99. You see, 99 wonderful names of Allah. There's the proof in your own hands. Now you need to go and join.
Oh dear.
Serious.
How can human minds do this, right?
Yeah. This is seriously what is happening. This is, I've seen this. I've seen people do that. It's wonderful, but this seems to work. Then you have the standard tactic of presenting Christian apologetics, where you have like something like the cosmological argument, normally in its kalam form, that a lot of people still find convincing. Now, I think I've refuted that in 5 different ways. There's different approaches. You can go from, you can start with the first word, because the first word already blows it out the water. Or you can go for the second premise, or you can go for the Matt Dillahunty version, who says, listen, let's cut to the chase. I'm going to give you premise 1, I'm going to give you premise 2, I'm going to give you the conclusion. Now what? And you're stuck, because there's no way that you can, in any rational way, get from, well, there must have been a cause to, and this is my God.
Yeah, I think the the Islamic one is incredibly poor, at least for the Christians, and Thunderous can back me up on this. when they go from generic God to Christian God, most of the time I've heard it, at least, it's pointing to the resurrection of Jesus. So if Jesus resurrected, and everything else he said about himself is true, i.e., that he's the Son of God, and this is a unique miracle that only he did, then that bridges the gap for them. Okay, but with the Muslims, what they don't have that sort of miracle, right? The only thing they can point to is presumably the Quran, which, even I, and you and I are atheists. I'd rather take, if Jesus' resurrection is true, that would be I don't know how you could prove that the Quran in its current form is a miracle. I do not know. But if in fact we could find out that Jesus resurrected, I'm going to say that's a miracle. To me, that's far more impressive than this, ancient cobbled together book that's obviously written by men. If find out that Jesus resurrected, man, that's world life changing, right? How could you demonstrate that the Quran is written by God? Clearly, you can't do it with the Quran that's currently around. So it's much more tenuous for Muslims to get from generic God to Allah, much more, in my view.
Well, when you say that with the crowd that's currently around, I think with recent events on the world scene, you have to say with the Qurans plural that are currently around. It's not just the one book anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
It's 30 odd versions of the one book, 30 odd interpretations of the one book now. And time and again, it's been mentioned that letters make words. There's nothing miraculous about that. Words make sentences. There's nothing miraculous about that. Sentences make verses or paragraphs. There is nothing miraculous about that. And just going back to miracles, let's just say for sake of discussion, if for those who don't believe in the resurrection, let's just pretend for a moment, for your sake, that the resurrection is real. Obviously, for me, it is, but for your lot, it's not. But let's just presume so that it was real. It would be nothing that anybody can replicate. Jesus walking on water, it would be nothing that anybody could replicate. Anything that Jesus did could not have been replicated or could be replicated today. However, writing down the characters that make up the Quran's words can be replicated. There's nothing about the Quran that cannot be replicated. So it's a miracle that can be replicated, whereas what Jesus did cannot be replicated. So in what sense can the Quran be a miracle in that context either? That's
it. If it were the case that Jesus resurrected, then that would be genuine miracle. If it were the case that God wrote the Quran, how would we know that? How could we demonstrate that? If there was a scientific way to demonstrate Jesus' resurrection, that would be one thing. But how could you even do that with the Quran? How could you?
There it is.
It's a very poor. So have they got something else? I guess if you're a Muslim and you're listening, what is it that you've got that would get you from generic God to Allah? The Christians have the resurrection, and if Jesus is the Son of God and everything he said about himself is true, then the Christian God exists. What would it be for you that gets you from there to there? And if it can't be the Quran, so what else?
They say it's the consciousness. What they're saying is that you cannot have consciousness, and if you look at the way that everything is constructed, obviously there must be a God, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to do that. It's the presuppositional argument. And this is something that they really, really strongly believe, that everybody is born with this fitra. In other words, everybody is equipped with the sense of this God built into them by this God. So it doesn't matter which God you actually believe, whether you are believing in Jesus or Krishna or Vishnu or whatever. Actually, it's the same God, as long as you believe in a God, and it will get you into the right position at some stage. But you have to have this basic understanding of the fitra, of the belief in a God, and the belief of the supernatural to actually get you going. And then the creation of the universe makes sense. And then everything else makes sense, because you see the design of the DNA, you see the design of all these different things. So that it needs to be a code, and there must have been some sort of intelligent designer behind everything, because after all, why do you have the Fibonacci sequence in all the pine cones? So it's ridiculous stuff like that.
The Muslim idea of the fitra, even if we granted that everybody had a fitra, the fact that most of the population on the planet do not believe in Allah is a big problem. So to try and try and smooth this over is, hey, everybody's got a God belief. Well, most of them have got a God belief that is not your God. So either your God is incompetent in giving the wrong God belief, or in fact, the majority of people who do not believe in it have actually got the correct one and you've got the wrong one. So you guys are the ones who's wrong. So even if you granted the fitra, that still doesn't, that would only get rid of atheists. If it were the case that in fact that there was a God belief and somehow we've put it aside, or we've forgotten about it, or we're suppressing it in unrighteousness, or whatever term you want to use, that would only get rid of a small population of the planet in any case. So to me, specifically the Islamic claim of the fitra, even if we granted it, it still would get them nowhere. And in fact, it would show how incompetent their God is, that everybody else doesn't believe in their God. Because then
no. Rob, you don't get it. Rob, this is God being totally generous. In other words, it's allowing for a local version, a local cultural version, which at the end of the day is going to be rectified. But at the moment, you're still allowed to have your own cultural local God, which at the end of the day is the same God. And you are going to be guided in the right way eventually. This is how they're arguing. So the fitra that you have, if it's assigned to a different name of a God, as long as it's only one God, you're okay. But the only problem is if you have many gods, if you have a family of gods, if you have a group of gods, a team of gods, then not. But if you have one God, you're okay. You will come right at some stage.
Yeah, well, that's a terrible argument there.
It is.
And because they try to claim the Christian God is the same. And of course, it's not the same. I mean, anybody can see that it's not the same God. And the question just has to be asked: if the fitra is true, is it the fact that God wanted himself to be known, or was it the fact that he just wanted humans to believe in a generic God? Because if that's the fact, then he's intentionally misleading them, and therefore that would not be a God that you would want to worship. So if they were intellectually honest, they'd have to say that the fitra is in fact a belief in Allah. Because if they go to generic God, then they're done for, in my view.
Yeah, but
and the fact that most people don't believe in Allah means they're done for anyway.
Yeah, but they have this free will thing. They have this test, and this is the point, that you can have your own God as long as you, at some stage in your life, realize it's the wrong one. That's why they come to you and they say, haven't you ever thought about your God? And it doesn't matter what religion you are in, what God you worship, haven't you ever thought there's something wrong with your God? And now look at the way that Islam portrays God as the one God. And it is correct, it is scientifically accurate, it is psychologically accurate, it is philosophically accurate. Don't you think it makes a lot more sense to go and worship the God of Islam than to continue with your own one who has all these flaws?
All right, let's grant you.
This is just one of those things.
Yeah, sure. Let's grant you even that, right? Even if we're in the most charitable mood that we could possibly be in, let's grant you that. What about every human being that has never heard of Islam and has died without hearing about it and firmly believed in some other God or no God? What about them? Did God intentionally mislead them? Did their free will take them away, or was that predestined? In which case, God is to blame for that.
No, Islam caters for that. The thing is that there are possibilities. It is granted that there are possibilities that people have never heard of the true God. They will continue to believe their own local, cultural, or whatever God, and they are okay with that. They will never get punished. They will not go to heaven, to hell. They will go straight to heaven because they never had a chance to meet the correct God. So they're okay.
Okay, but that destroys the Dawa then. You must never give people Dawa, because if you give them Dawa and you're a poor Dawa apologist,
Correct.
like virtually everyone we've ever come across, you will condemn them to hell.
Correct. This is the problem. And they don't understand that, because they're saying, well, it's the opposite. We are giving them the freedom from their current God to give them the higher, I don't know what you call it, level of our God, which is a much higher God than your God. So by giving you the possibility to go to the one real God, we are actually liberating you. This is the way that they are thinking.
Yeah, and of course that's flawed, right? Because you'd need like a Jesus version of I know it's blasphemy to
even more,
thunderous
even
as he
higher.
is, but you need a Jesus version of the Islamic preacher that couldn't be mistaken and that could convince people, if they were rational, that it would just be irrefutable. Then you would be fine, right?
That's where the Quran steps into the Jesus role.
Yes. Yeah, which we've seen so many times. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's a
So
contradiction, right? If in fact these people, either the Muslim has to claim that people who have never heard about it go to hell, or they've got to claim that the people who have never heard about it do go to heaven. But then to give them dawah, and if you're a fallible human being, you are likely not going to give them the perfect dawah. And if they reject it, very likely, if they're honest people, because of your poor dawah, you have condemned them to hell. In which case, you will be judged poorly.
The thing
I
is,
don't see a way out of this for them.
the thing is that one, if you give them dawa and they refuse, then they go to hell. But if they don't get the opportunity for dawa, then they have the chance of going to heaven just because of their state and ignorance. The kindest thing to do would be to not tell them anything then.
Correct. Yep.
Then dawa
Exactly
serves
right.
the purpose. In
So
fact,
really,
if
they're
the dawa condemns people, it doesn't bring people to God, then surely from the Islamic perspective.
yeah. So it's you can't have your cake and eat it. You've got to bite the bullet one way or the other. Otherwise, there's a contradiction. Now, many of the Muslims that I've spoken to either don't know what a contradiction is, or even if there is, they're quite happy to live with contradictions, which obviously means they're irrational. And so, but again, we can always try our luck with asking people, how do you, what is your view on this, and paint the picture for them, because they might not even know what's entailed, right? So they might choose one horn or the other, if you want to use that term of dilemma, but not realize the implications of taking one or the other. And so,
and if you do, they will stick their fingers in their ears and say la la la.
obviously, there's going to be those as well. Yeah.
Then this, I mean, there's so many different things.
Are you playing
Then
a video,
have
by the
this-
way? Stops. Just want to check.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
it's a short one, a very very short one.
Okay, cool.
Because I'm just going through different tactics. I'm just showing
Yeah,
different
sure.
ways what to look out for. Then you have the reality claim. In other words, you have. I mean, I'm just going from the. I didn't script it. I was late. I didn't do anything. I didn't do my homework. I didn't do this. I'm just going from the top of my head. Okay? So then you have the reality claim where they say, well, look, everything that is in the Quran actually happened, because unlike the Bible, the Quran corrects it. For example, it says in the Quran that the Pharaoh is going to be somehow resurrected and maintained in his body. And look, lo and behold, we have the mummies today. So this means that it's 100% correct what the Quran says is true, and it actually happens. And unlike other books, it shows in reality the way of what is true. Now, of course, it's not. Okay, because as soon as you start looking into it, as soon as you actually apply critical thinking, and we always come back to the critical thinking, as soon as you apply this, you see this is flawed, because of course the Pharaoh is not kept, maintained, or preserved in his body. It's an empty shell. There is nothing left of the body. The body is not intact. And if you look at the body without eyes, without flesh, without anything, there's nothing left of the body except some bones and then some I don't know, some cloth or something. But it's not preserved in the body.
Let's just pretend to be generous, for instance. Let's just be generous and grant Islam this, right? However, this is the 7th century. The Egyptians already knew about mummification way back when they were putting the pharaohs in the esophaguses and placed them. If I remember correctly, my history correctly, the way they used to place them in the pyramids was a technique. So they knew so that the body wouldn't rot, it would dry out. Okay, so in that sense, it was kind of, you could argue to a greater or lesser degree that it was preserved. So however you want to look at it, right, either Muhammad got it wrong in what he was saying, or Muhammad was speaking on something that they already knew about a couple of thousand years before he came on the scene.
Yeah.
So either way, he's wrong.
So this is one of the things that you will hear a lot, these sort of claims towards reality. Is there anything else that I can think of from? I mean, I'm not even going to go into the scientific claims where they claim everything is correct. I've had this week again. Can you believe it? This week on Facebook, somebody said to me, this was on a thingamajig, on a YouTube video, where, funny enough, SC Dawa is leaving my comments up if I comment within somebody else's comment. So if I start a comment, it will be deleted, but if I comment inside, then I can comment in there. So this is quite hilarious. And there are two people there who are playing Muslim apologists like it's unbelievable. I wish I could like follow every sort of instance where they comment on some Muslim claims, because it's a sheer delight to look how they are following up one logical argument with the next and showing them up to show how stupid they are. Anyway, so somebody came to me and actually made the claim again and said, well, didn't you know that even the rotating stars are being mentioned in the Quran? And I said, well, show me this. And they can't, of course. And they always tell me here, well, what do you know? You haven't studied this. You don't know anything, but I know, and therefore you're just the ignorant fool. You're the Islamophobe. So this is the other tactic that you get.
I'll just turn and say, which of the 31 Qurans are you referring to? Because the Quran...
Yeah, this is okay. This is now the earthquake at the moment, and
the stars are not spherical; they're actually square shapes. And I've got a friend; he reads the Quran too, and in his Quran, stars are actually triangles. So, which Quran are you referring to?
Thank you for bringing that up, and I think we need to hammer this home every single time. I think we should start off with the show. This is an earthquake, all right? This is really something. This is the first time that we have a real mistake, a heavy mistake, one that is, I don't know, substantial for the entire validity of the Quran, and it is being acknowledged by Islamic scholars. Now, this I've never had this before. This is the first time that I've come close to any of this. And this is why we need to hammer this home. There is a claim in the Quran. And now, funny enough, there are a lot of Muslims who are already backing away from this, who are saying, no, this is not really a claim as such. It doesn't really say that. But, okay, there are some sentences in the Quran. We say that God protects Allah, this Islamic Allah, protects the Quran to, to sort of show the contrast between the Torah and the Bible, where certain sentences have been amended, added, changed, corrected, I don't know what, updated. And everybody's quite happy with this. So it's not a claim that this is like verbatim by a God. This was inspired by a God. So it's supposed to convey the message. And this is, the way that people are quite happy with it. Cool. But now Muslims are saying, no. Ours is much better. Ours has been preserved. It is still the original message. The original message from, we don't know the year, it has been preserved exactly the way that it was recited by the people at the time of the Prophet, because this is the way it was transmitted. It was revealed sentence by sentence to Muhammad, who gave it to his people, who gave it to scribes, who started writing it down, who then collected all the different bits and pieces together, and then Uthman made one final version of the Quran. Everything else was destroyed, and then this one Quran was then copied 6 times, and then 5 copies were sent to other places. This is the story. This is the narrative. And now all of a sudden, we see not only that there are other manuscripts which are popping up left, right, and center. So not everything was collected by Uthman. Number 2, we see that all the old Qurans, every single Quran is different. There are no 2 identical Qurans. They all differ in a lot of places. And there are experts who do nothing else but look at old manuscripts to understand what happened. I don't even know if there's a term for somebody who is a historian of manuscripts to try and piece together history using only old texts. Because he anthropologist? No, I don't know. Anyway, so there are people who look and this Dr. Daniel Brubaker, thank you. He is the one who doesn't do anything else. And Dr. Brubaker is the one who says, well, okay, Of course, like I mean, of course he's plugging his book. Of course he's plugging his more let's say colloquial stuff, which is not so scholarly and so on. Of course, because he has to make a living, and I understand that, and I totally accept this. So he's now coming out, created a YouTube channel, and said, "Listen, guys, I have a couple of pieces which might be of interest to you." And this is exactly the point. Muslims do not have a leg to stand on. It is over, it is finished. You cannot make the claim anymore that what it says in the Quran, that the Quran is preserved, that Allah will not allow any changes, that this is over. It's done. You can't. It's out. Yeah, there you are. This is his channel. And he's released 3 videos now and I think he's very clever in doing it, though, because he's not going crazy and saying here's 50,000 mistakes. He's saying no, here's one folio, one page, and here are, I don't know, 8 mistakes, additions, corrections, deletions even, on this one folio. And I think that's brilliant. I think it anyway. So this is something that I think now we need to drive home, that you cannot make this claim any longer. And this is gone. The train has left the station, and that's it.
I think it's worth commenting.
Philology. I've never heard of that, actually. Thank you. Thanks, Izzy. Never heard of that.
I think it's worth adding on that point as well, Substack. This isn't just unbiased, non-Muslim information. This is information that Muslims have known. There's an implication of the deception that has been undertaken by Muslim scholars and historians that have deliberately lied and suppressed this information, whilst providing, if you like, a rhetorical response for all their pseudo Dawa Gandists that hang around Hyde Park Corner and YouTube and such, pretending that the Quran hasn't been corrupted, or should say that there are no variants, and yet the reality is they've known about this, they've lied to their own believers, and this has come from their believers as well. This isn't sort of like Western atheists or Christians or Jews where there's like a Zionist plot, or the Jews are paying people to say this. No, this is coming from your own people, your own scholars, on each continent at that. So you got one on the American continent, you got one in the the European continent, and you've got one in the Middle Eastern continent. There's no escaping from this now.
Yeah. So this is gone. So I think this is a huge crack in the foundation of Islam, because it shows you that the claims made in the Quran, once you start looking at them, they simply fall apart. And you can do this with any claim. As soon as you start looking a little bit deeper, it goes away. It's just gone.
Well,
okay, shall we take a look at an example?
Sure.
Then I shall share the audio. Thank you very much, Rob. Jesus, I can't believe I forgot about this. Yes.
You won't forget again, I'm sure. You'll remember for all time.
Oh, this is so embarrassing.
Oh, you're going for the low-hanging fruit, eh? Okay,
I'm going for the low-hanging fruit. Indeed.
It doesn't get much lower. It doesn't get much lower.
It doesn't get much higher either.
Go on, then.
What I like about this is that it's just 5 minutes. So I'm just going to roll it and see what happens. How can I get to the beginning?
So we just have to shout out loudly, stop, stop, stop.
Oh, shit. Yes, it's true. It's going to be difficult. Okay, I need to find a way of controlling this.
Can't you? Is it going through a Chrome tab?
There you go. I found it. I found it. All right. Do you have audio?
Well, play it first. No. So just unshare it. Click on share screen again. Choose Chrome tab. Click on the tick box for share audio, and then hit the share button.
That's exactly what I did. Share screen. Share audio.
No. Well,
Chrome tab.
Chrome tab. Yeah. Got to click on the
Where
Chrome
was
tab
it?
first, then share audio, right?
Share audio, Chrome tab. And now I need to find it. I have too many windows.
Need a Mac.
Ah, here we go.
Stops.
Let's try again.
You're gonna get
There you
saying,
go.
who's this handsome boy?
Is it because I've had an issue with Chrome. Open volume mixer. Let me jack up the volume a bit because Chrome is so finicky. I tell you, it's louder now.
I don't really care about like people's opinions. I don't care about.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Yeah.
I can.
All right. Then what I'll do is I'll just translate it a little bit in the beginning. This is just somebody who does not. I don't know why people come to Speaker's Corner and then don't want to be seen. They're in public. I mean, how can you? You have no
Yeah.
expectation of privacy. I don't know what people are doing.
Yeah, people are
So-
profoundly confused about that.
This is from the Salam team. I can't even remember what it stands for.
Of which hijab is no
Society-
longer part, apparently.
Yeah, he bombed out because it's too primitive for him. He says, I don't know what. So anyway, so this is some sort of acronym for I don't know, I can't remember what. So this is a guy called Ali Dawa. He is one of the. How can I say this politely? Less philosophically.
He's a simpleton. I think the word is simpleton.
I was trying to be polite for once.
Yeah, but I think that accurately represents somebody, right? Somebody can be a simpleton. And
But being honest is the politest. The politest thing you can do is by being honest.
Say again?
I said the politest thing you can do is being honest. So yes, he's a simpleton.
Okay, I didn't want to use that term, but okay, so he's a simpleton.
So what is
So-
a simpleton? That to me, a simpleton is somebody that really doesn't have any nuance, that really doesn't understand things. And my apologies. Oftentimes, people like that will display, the Dunning-Kruger effect, i.e., in their ignorance, they will have a great deal of certainty because they're so ignorant. They think they have a good argument, not realizing there's a great deal of nuance, there's a great deal more information that they are blissfully unaware of. And so they will assert things that if they had more knowledge on a topic, they wouldn't dare assert with the same degree. Well, if they were intellectually honest, they wouldn't dare assert with the same level of confidence. But ignorance does breed confidence, right? Because you don't know any better. And I'm sure that happens to all of us, but he's a particularly egregious example of this. Because he's so ignorant on most things. But here's the other thing, right? For people who don't know, he's had conversation with I'm not the smartest guy in the world, myself, Skydive Phil, other people in the park. He's spoken to most people, Bob the Builder, whoever it is, right? So he has heard stronger arguments, nuanced arguments from interlocutors that don't believe in Islam. But do you think any of it has actually gone in, been processed, and actually been remembered or taken on board? I'll let you be the judge of that.
No, it doesn't register. It just simply does not go in there. It doesn't make him think, hang on, what I am saying is different. Why is it different? How is it different? And why can it be different? And he doesn't think like that. He just, Hanan.
Okay, ready? Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters and dear friends.
Now, one thing I first always want to point out to a Dawa, for people who are getting Dawa, they always first need to praise their Lord, and they normally then say, well, everything that I say might be wrong, but my God is never wrong. So they're always sort of putting themselves behind their God, always making sure that whatever they are saying, they cannot be held accountable. It was just my sort of understanding, but yes, God knows better, and that's it. But they always need to do that first. They cannot just go straight out and say, listen, by the way, I have here, and we're going to be talking about X. No, they first have to go. This is part of the Dawa that they first have to go and praise their God.
In my country, they say, eat sweets and talk sweets. Have you had the chocolate?
Pardon?
Have you had chocolate?
Have I had chocolate?
Have you had one? Did you?
Oh yeah, I had one, yeah.
Yeah, good. How's it taste?
That's very good.
It's good, yeah? Yeah, I'm going to have one later, but...
He said, eat sweet and talk sweet. Yeah, that's what he said. But interesting thing is I saw a discussion with him several weeks ago where he threatened to punch a guy's lights out because the guy says, I want to be friends with your wife. Do you mind if I start sucking her breast? And he says, if you talk like that, I'm going to punch your lights out. Or he threatened violence, so he's not very sweet there, then, is he?
But it's also.
I want to be his wife's friend as well. You know, I'm sure all of us want to be his wife's friend. So, you know, if people want to play pass the parcel with his wife, so we could be mahram, I'm up for it.
I'm sure she's a nice lady, so I won't say anything about her. But perhaps the only thing is the choice in husband. Husband might be questionable.
I'll give you my verdict after I've tasted her.
But where did he get her? Did he organize her or what?
No idea. I mean, but I think the other thing here is it's starting off with like an emotional sweetener, you know, for want of a better word. Right? Start off, so it's to try and get the person on board, because if you can be nice to them and you can get their guard down and their critical thinking less operational, well, then you've got a better chance of convincing somebody.
Well, if you think about the video that you showed last week or the week before about the other Dawa guy who was very polite, very sweet, very innocent, very knowledgeable, amiable, you know, that's how it's got to be, hasn't it? If he wants to appeal to people, because
it's sales technique 101.
Yeah, but there's two things here, guys. There's two as well. One is appealing to your gullible, already believing audience to show them how strong you are or your faith is. The other is trying to convince somebody else.
Yeah,
and you'll see different approaches, right? Some of them is propaganda approaches, which is they don't really care about converting the other person. What they really want to do is show that they have the answer and Islam is strong. That's the one thing. But then the other is they do want to try and convert. So we'll see here whether this is really, is he trying to do Dawa or is it a propaganda thing to show? I haven't even watched this video, but I'm more likely that it'll be a Dawa thing because it's not like myself, Stops Thunderous, or anybody else that's got critical thinking, probably. I could be wrong about that. So it's somebody that's probably quite ignorant about Islam and that sort of stuff. So they might well be trying to do it. With us, that won't work because obviously we've looked into it a bit more. So for us, it would be a propaganda spiel because they know they're not going to convert people who think critically.
And please, I also have not seen this. So I'm not saying anything in before, you know, like I know what's coming. No, I really have no idea.
One uncle commented for.
Yeah.
May Allah bless him. Anyways, what's your name?
Raza.
Reza. How you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
How old are you?
I'm 17.
17. So I was walking around the park and I came across you and your father.
Yeah.
You had something to say.
Yeah.
You know, please tell us, because you know we're here for the youngsters. We try to come here every week and try to help the youngsters. Tell us your personal little journey.
I was born a Muslim and I've been surrounded by Islam my whole life, but not really to I mean, it's the same for most kids growing up in the West nowadays. Not really had an active interest in it until I was about 16 years old, and then I came across yours and Muhammad's videos, and that really showed, because I never thought of Islam as as multifaceted as Muhammad shows it to be, because for me it was just religion, but then he's talking about philosophy and.
Am I getting this right? Is this guy a Muslim who wasn't interested in Islam and then became interested in Islam through Muhammad hijab?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Well, let's just see if he gives good reasons as to why that's the case. I can't imagine any, but let's see.
Yeah, but he says because he's talking about philosophy. He's not.
But people can talk.
He's throwing around catchwords. He's just throwing around some sound bites, but there's nothing. So he thinks what hijab is doing is actually profound. Oh wow!
Yeah, but that's an example of. Yeah, but that's the example, right, of somebody that doesn't really know what's being said, but it sounds impressive, and especially if you do it with certainty, right? That's the key thing in convincing other people. If you are certain about whatever it is, you can almost speak gibberish. And if the person doesn't know much about the topic or they don't have their brain switched on, they could be convinced by it.
That's exactly it.
As the phrase goes, the best salesmen are the ones that believe their own products.
But then he's talking about philosophy and all these other things. I didn't know you could ever associate them with Islam, or like even like I didn't think of Islam as a philosophy, as a science, as all these things. And the more I learn about it, the more like the more at peace you feel, isn't it?
Stop there for a moment. Stop that sort of thing, right? When somebody says that, one of the things that I think we should all be thinking about is the first question that comes to my mind is, can you tell me something specific that hijab said that you thought was substantial or convincing?
Correct.
Ask a question like that and see what the response is.
But there won't, because there's nothing specific that has been said. It's sophistry. It's presented a misleading argument in a convincing way. That's what it's going to be.
I get this such a lot with people, right? Yeah, that was brilliant. He did so well. He schooled this person. They rinsed this one, whatever the case. And I ask people, give me something specific that the person said, whoever it is that did this. And
it was the reaction of the crowd. It was the reaction of the crowd. That's what he's listening to. And he's thinking, because the audience read it when the Muslim said this or hijab said that, he's thinking, well, he must have said something. I may not have grasped it, but the audience did. So he must have said something that was convincing, hence why. So very much what you get with Ahmed Didat or Zakir Naik and their audience. It's the same technique. Get the audience on your side by using some kind of emotional reasoning rather than, say, logical or critical reasoning. And those who are there in the audience or are watching the DVD that they got from the local halal shop when they went to get £1.5 pound of mince for the mother to cook the curry, right? They'll watch the DVD. They're more, if they don't understand the points raised by the scholar or the debater, they're going to be swept by the momentum of the applause of the audience. That's what he'll probably be resonating with.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is he says, "I never knew that you could associate Islam with science." Well, you can't.
Think about it. That's my point. He didn't think about it. Some scholar for $1 said something about science. The audience started to clap. So he must have thought, well, I don't understand it, but I'm going to put my faith in those people that did understand it. So it must have been true because they're clapping.
The one thing that was very helpful to me when I used to coach people, most human beings, when they speak to you and you ask them what a problem is or you ask them a question, most human beings are very general. Very seldom do you come across somebody that will give you a specific, nuanced response. And so if you have in your head, which is something that I learned over time, somebody will say, I'm feeling depressed because whatever, I'm down. What does that mean? Explain to me what down is. How are you depressed? And it's the same sort of stuff you can use here, right? What is it that he said that's convincing to you? Give me something specific. People talk in generalities. Other people whose brains aren't tuned hear the generalities, and to them it's the same language, and they all go, yeah, but of course. And it's the same for me. I guarantee you that there'll be Muslims. I won't guarantee, but you're probably going to have people in the comments of this video will say, yeah, I was convinced by hijab too. Do you know what's brilliant? And they will give general comments. And if you ask any of them what something specific was and why they think it's good, you just won't hear anything. So they all speak in high-level generalities, and they all think that they like patting each other on the back, but you don't get any specifics. It's without substance.
Yeah, and they'll make their small points quite verbose, as if by adding more words to a single point makes it sound more credible.
Well, I think the most important thing is the certainty.
Yeah,
because what they always do is they will never say, well, it could be, it might be, and what it seems to indicate is this. No, they will say, this is it. This is the way that it is. I mean, this is where hijab, he goes with his necessity. Okay, well, show me something that is necessary. Show me what is this. And he can't, but he will stand there and he will shout and scream and perform and do his clown act on stage, and people are impressed by that. And this is exactly what you do when what Rob just said. If you then say, well, okay, then this is specific. Tell me this specific thing. What is that? And then they're lost. And this guy's just saying, well, I can see all these things, and I never knew that you could associate Islam with them. Well, you can't. It's just, if you coach people, you should know. There's this experiment, and there's a name, and I forgot the name. where they take actors and they put a guy in the middle and they say which line is longer. Well, and they all say it's line number two
Oh
when it's
yeah,
obviously line number three. And
yeah,
he will then be swayed to say line number two because he thinks there's something wrong with him. And this is
yeah.
a well-known experiment. I just forgot the name. And this is exactly what is happening. You hear the crowd, and then you think, well, if the crowd all agree that this is great, then it must be great. So let me agree with them. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh boy.
That's good. Yeah. So, Mohammed Hijaz videos and Dawa videos in general have helped you in what way? Did you ever have doubts at one moment?
Nah, I mean, I don't like, 'cause growing up, I live in southwest London. There's a lot of like, it's not the most Muslim area in where I am, but yeah. So I wasn't really surrounded by Muslims. But then I moved school in year 10 when I was like 15 years old, and I had a lot more black and Muslim friends. So not all of them were Muslim, but they were from like multicultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was surrounded by it, but still, like, everyone. Now I'm in an environment. Suddenly, I came from one where no one was Muslim to be in an environment where there are quite a few Muslims. But again, people are just, their families are Muslim and stuff like that. But yeah, so
Just stop there for a second.
how's
Stop.
your
Okay, if you rewind that, he actually kind of asked an okay question. He did ask, what I don't know if he used the word specifically. What specifically did Hijab say? But then the other thing you notice with people is they ask more than one question in a go, right? And this confuses the human mind. If you rewound that, he asked two things. If he had shut up after he'd asked what specifically, right, then we could have heard that maybe the guy would have given an answer. But because he tagged something else on after that, this guy went off on a tangent now and hasn't said anything substantive. He just told us a little bit about his experience, but it's not valuable to the person who's listening to go, that's something that's convincing. It's just my story, and here's where I am.
That's a tactic that works two ways, because that happens with arguments as well, where they'll ask 3 or 4 questions, they'll try and confound the mind of the person that they're asking the question of. The guy might only answer one of them, but then we'll say, look, they'll walk away saying, well, we asked him 5 questions, you can only ask one, you couldn't answer the other 4, or you couldn't ask most of the questions that we asked. It's just another psychological tactic in 2 ways.
That's good. Yeah. So, Mohammed Hijaz videos and Dawa videos in general have helped you in what way? Did you ever have doubts at one moment?
nah, I mean,
Okay, there you go. Can you see that? 2 things
Yeah.
happened there. You have doubts. Did they help you in what way? Stop talking, because that was kind of a specific-ish question. And he could have said, okay, it helped me because he probably still would have given a general answer, but then he asked him the second part. And this now confused the mind, and off he went on a tangent here.
And did you notice as well, when he was talking about the people he's been brought up, he said, I have black and Muslim friends.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah.
What's the point of mentioning the color of people? This goes back to what I said to you before about how Muslims sneakily think that they'll get their African and Afro-Caribbean friends on side, because it's like it's us versus whitey. You're trying to tell me he doesn't have any white friends either then? So it's kind of like a race thing going on there as well in the discussion.
Well, I think this is what he tries to express, that he was living in the Southwest, a non-Muslim area, which I think was predominantly white, and then he moved somewhere else where it was more black people and Muslims. And I think the multicultural aspect that he sort of brought out, I think this is what he's trying to stress now, that it was no longer this straight-laced white area, but this was multicultural now.
like, 'cause growing up, I live in southwest London. There's a lot of like, it's not the most Muslim area in where I am, but
And something that you need to watch out for. There was a cut here, so there was something that he said they didn't like, which they cut out.
yeah.
I
So
wasn't watching the
wasn't
video
really
there. Sorry, I missed that. I wasn't actually looking. I'm listening rather than looking.
Okay, look, he's fidgeting.
surrounded.
Did you see the
Yeah,
jump?
there you go. Yeah.
But yeah, so I wasn't really surrounded by Muslims. But then I moved school in year 10 when I was like 15 years old, and I had a lot more black and Muslim friends. So not all of them were Muslim, but they were from like multicultural backgrounds.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was surrounded by it. But still, like, everyone. Now I'm in an environment. Suddenly, I came from one where no one was Muslim to be in an environment where there are quite a few Muslims. But again, people are just, their families are Muslim and stuff like that. But yeah, so
how's your relationship with your dad? If I ask your dad, is he a good boy?
Yeah, I'm Halal.
No, not you. I'm asking your dad. Uncle, is he good? Is he a good boy? Does he listen to you? Yeah. We need to check.
It's just trying to. What's the point in that? Why his dad's not going to turn and say, "No, my son's a bit of a cunt." He's not going to say that. It's a bit like going to the Antiques Roadshow, and say, "Well, would you like to know how much it's worth?" Well, I didn't lug it on the bus for the fucking fun of it. They're just stupid questions. Of course, his dad's going to say he's a good boy. What a dumb question's that?
He's okay, but he's a bit dumb.
Yeah, this is not substantive, right?
Yes, they're going to get refuted.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Like my parents, I think, have given me the best possible upbringing because I know a lot of people who have had like overbearing upbringings and then they are not.
Look how he's looking at the crib sheet. Because I think this is the Salam crib sheet that he's got in the background, and he's frantically thinking, okay, what should I ask the guy? So he's looking at the.
You're talking
sheet at
about
the
that
back.
stand behind him there.
Yes.
Okay, I can't really see it from where I am.
That's
it's
known,
something-
that's known as the Marlon branded dummy prompt card.
Yeah, because it says invite, present, reclaim, or something like this. Because I can't make it out, but he's sort of looking at this, trying to figure out what his next question is going to be.
Going away from Islam.
Yes,
Whereas
yes.
my dad, and especially, has always led by example.
That's brilliant.
Like I've just been watching it. So regardless of whether it was affecting me growing up, like it's subconsciously everything. We have the pixel, he has the picture. So
That's amazing.
It's part of a long-term plan, isn't it?
Exactly, and it's important that you said, that your dad was leading by example, and that's how it needs to be, brothers and sisters. That the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, as it says on our banner, I only came to perfect righteous character. Your actions is a universal language that.
Okay, this is where my blood starts boiling. The claims that these people who do all these Dawah things, what they say about Muhammad is spectacular. How you can say, I only came to, what did he say, perfect the character.
Righteous character.
That is amazing. I mean, we have a guy who, according to Islamic scholars, according to Islamic texts, deemed as authentic, deemed as the most highest level of authenticity that you can imagine, plundered. He stole, he robbed, he decapitated, he tortured, he enslaved, he raped, he killed, he did all sorts of things. And for me, always, the worst is that he encouraged his men to enjoy raping female captives. Now, this is not me. This is not me saying this. This is according to Islamic texts. How can you tell somebody that this is any guy who's doing anything to perfect a character or something, and then does exactly the opposite and does that? I mean, how can you do that? This is lying. This is deceiving people into believing something that is absolutely not true. And this is always beyond me, why they do that.
Everybody can understand. So it's very important that we conduct ourselves in the best way possible. And with this youngster, Reza, may Allah bless him, he observed it.
Is this the guy who said, I'm going to kick your head in?
This is the guy who said, with the Mahram, I'm going to break your face or punch your teeth in or something, yeah.
And this is what he calls behaving in the best way possible. Is this thing that I get when I comment on the claims by Muslims that they constantly tell me, I'm going to do XXX to your mother and to your sister and your this. Is this what he's talking about?
Yeah, but he's just going to claim. Yeah, but Stops, he's just going to claim that he's a fallible human being and he was mistaken, maybe.
Yeah.
And he saw what he was doing. And he obviously understood that. He saw the devotion his father had to his religion. And alhamdulillah, via our videos, hijabs, myself, a variety of other brothers, it's helped him be more firm in his religion, inshallah. And that's what we're here to do, inshallah, to re-get that confidence, to deconstruct these false narratives and reconstruct purer minds.
What false narratives? What is he talking about? This is, I don't know. This is so dishonest. What is happening here? This is trying to tell people, look, what you are hearing about Islam, anything that is negative is wrong, and everything that we tell you is right and is absolute correct and truth and everything. That's bullshit.
It's also kind of like laying the groundwork that if you come across information that does sort of cause tremors in your faith, well, come and see us and we'll straighten it out for you.
Yeah. And this is exactly the point. When you say, well, what about slavery in the Quran? And then there is no slavery in the Quran. Or like telling me when I said to them, well, you reject anything to do with evolution. No, I believe in evolution. It's just when you dig a little bit, you find out, no, it's a very special kind of evolution, not everything in evolution. And it's very specific what they are telling, but they will lie you like straight in the face without blinking, and then sort of, well, maybe a little bit here, maybe a lot different here, but they will never immediately admit that there's something wrong with this. They will squirm and do and make and do, but they will not admit this.
Because most of the time, if you look, it's just popularized ideas. You get evolution. You don't even understand evolution. You get it? And they just, no, but evolution explains this or that. So yeah, no, barakallah. Is there any advice you would like to give for the youngsters that are watching this?
I don't know, just like ask questions, because a lot of people feel like if you can't, like if you're not allowed to ask questions, they're going to get beaten up or removed from Islam. It's like, but Islam is a much more multi-dimensional thing than you think it is. So like, sometimes people, like I think there's a lot of pseudo-philosophy, which people have, like, especially amongst youngsters. Everyone thinks they're intelligent, and all of us aren't. And there's a lot of people asking all these questions, and they're all essentially asking the same questions.
Exactly.
But no one really knows. No one really has any especially with young people, we're really affected by biases, and we're really affected by, like, the minute something will come to the conversation related to a certain subject, that is like unattractive to talk about.
Well, guys, I can give you like really good advice. If you're a Muslim and you have a question, you want to know something, come to the Gin and Tonic show and ask us, and we will give you a straight answer. We're not going to give you bullshit. We're not going to give you Dawa. We're going to give you the truth. We're going to give you the facts. We're not going to lie to you. But the funny thing is, they will prefer to go to somebody who will confirm their preconceived ideas than go to somebody who will question their beliefs and tell them something else. Because it means that you have to change your mind. And changing your mind is one of the most difficult things for human beings. This is the funny thing.
Like, for example, if I talked about Islam without mentioning that it's Islam, everyone would have no problem with it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the minute you talk...
Excuse me? If you talk about Islam, if you tell me that a man is allowed to beat his wife, then I will not have a problem with that. If you tell me that a man is a degree above a woman, I will not have a problem with that. If you tell me that a man is allowed to rape his female slave even if she's married, I'm not going to have a problem with that unless you tell me that this is in Islam. Listen, China, you've got this the wrong way around. It is Islam that is the problem, not what you are saying until you say it's Islam.
And the thing is, I've come to realize in the past week, when listening to a Muslim turn around and say that when you beat your wife, it was referring to the mishwak, a toothpick. And then I thought to myself, well, the man he must be referring to must have been 90 foot Adam, and the toothpick he would have been using would have been the size of a baseball bat. So that's the toothpick that they didn't tell you about.
Well, the thing is, what a lot of people don't understand is that if you reduce it to a bishwak, it makes it even worse, because then it becomes emotional torture. Then it becomes demeaning. It shows, well, you're not even worth the beating. I'm just going to tap you lightly with a toothbrush, and this is the punishment for you, to show you what a stupid creature you are. After I've admonished you, I've separated from bed, because I feared that you might be subversive or in some way an instigator, and this is why I'm punishing you. And now the height of punishment is just tapping you lightly with a toothbrush. That is terrible. That's even worse than anything, you know. Oh, this is so terrible.
About Islam,
Exactly.
then like there's all this political connotations
Exactly.
to it.
That's exactly the problem. The people's problem are not with the issues that they question Islam about. It's because the label Islam comes with it. Yeah, no problem with that. Barakallahu feek. May Allah bless you. Keep you firm.
Oops.
Inshallah, make dua for us, yeah?
That looked very gay. That was the weirdest handshake ever.
Yeah, no problem with that. Barakallahu feek. May Allah bless you. Keep you firm.
Likewise.
Inshallah, make dua for us, yeah? And be good to your parents. Okay, I'm keeping a close eye on you. Take care.
Okay, so there wasn't anything substantive in that at all.
No.
Apart from a few sort of tactics or whatever the case is. But that was really just to show that somebody's convinced by things that they can't really articulate. So, I mean, we'll have a look over the week and see what else we can find, and we'll keep it sort of shorter, like 15, 20 minutes max. But again, I guess it's useful to see that, that's part of the tactics, right? The propaganda is to bring in somebody that is a Muslim, or maybe was thinking about it, or was questioning it, and now is more firm. But when you ask them why are they firm, which he didn't really ask anyway, but if he had, what specifically made you probably wouldn't get a substantial answer anyway. So rather than do that, you ask him about his journey, or you ask him something personal, and he'll give you his personal story and tell you why he's convinced. But not in a sense that's substantive, that you can go, hang on a moment, but you said X, what about Y? You don't even get that, right? You just get some sort of vague story, and that's it. So just parading somebody there. Look, here's a nice Muslim I found in Speaker's Corner.
Yeah, but
Okay.
if you listen to the target audience will be very much all those kids that Ali Dawa was speaking. In the kind of way he's basically saying, yeah, and the audience are going to be thinking, yeah, I'm just like that. I've got doubts about Islam. I've heard things. Yeah, I'm just like that. So that's the audience.
Exactly. But the kid didn't say anything substantial that would convince people, right? He just gave a bit of his own story.
That's how it works.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry this was not, but actually I liked it. I thought now in retrospect, I think this is quite an interesting thing, because it shows you how much this lying is ingrained. This whole deception thing is not something they only pull out when it comes to talking to non-Muslims. No, they even go on with this when they are talking to fellow Muslims. So they still lie to each other, knowing that this is a lie. Come on, they must know that this is a lie. They must know that Islam is very two-dimensional. There's nothing special about Islam. There's nothing in Islam that makes it correct or convincing in any way. But internally, even when they are talking to each other, they're still upholding this I don't know, this dream or this pretense that there is something there. And this is what I found interesting in this short.
But you say they must know. I don't think that they know it at all, Stops. If you're brainwashed and inculcated from a young age and the critical thinking is not there, you don't know, or what you claim to know is not in fact part of reality. So I think you're giving a bit of credit there, or you're assuming that their brain is operating the way we have, or they've had the upbringing, or they're able to discern between what is likely true and what is very likely false. And I just don't think that's the case.
And also, can I just add on that? Don't take lightly what he said when he says, I grew up with the Muslim friends and black friends as well. So it's not just the ideology of Islam that's playing an influence on him. It's his culture and the perceived racism that's been inculcated in him, that he will perceive as a hatred against him because if he's a Muslim and because maybe he's brown or such. That will also accentuate his desire to stay Muslim or want to become Muslim, because there's a prejudice you're growing up with as well.
Okay, and I always think, come on, there must be some basic I mean, you can't be lower than 80 in your IQ. And as soon as you're higher than 80, you must know that there is something wrong with this. You can't believe that ants can talk. You can't believe that it's
No, but they
possible
don't know those
to.
things. Stops. Most of them have never read the book, right? It's like, and not, but like myself, right? I was a cultural Christian, so, but people, let's just say, who go to church once in a while, who don't take it seriously, who don't know much about it, and are convinced without really knowing much. And that's the same for everybody, even atheists, I would suggest that happens to as well, right? And so many Muslims in particular have never read the Quran, don't even know there's something about talking ants at all. If you ask most Muslims, do you know that there's something about talking ants? Most of them would look at you as if you're just making stuff up.
And
It's
Solomon and the
impossible.
Hebrew bird, 90-foot Adam, drinking camel piss.
That's not in the Quran.
No, maybe not.
But it's difficult for me to understand this. Really, it's difficult that somebody can know. I mean, they must have read the book. They must have read some pieces about the splitting moon and okay, maybe not the slapping you with a piece of steak will revive a corpse. Maybe those pieces not. But the splitting moon, come on, everybody's heard about that one. So it must be
Taken out of context. Taken out of context. You heard that from a Christian missionary or a Jew or a Zionist plot or an atheist. Taken out of context. And you've got to remember the root word, the root word has 10 meanings, and there are now 31 Qurans with about 4,000 meanings per word now. So the numbers are escalating of what the context is.
But also, if you start with a view that the Quran is inerrant, then anything you say in there, you're going to believe until somebody proves it false, which of course is the complete opposite way of thinking critically and rationally. You believe something when there's good evidence. You don't believe something until there's evidence against it. That would then commit you to believing everything until people disproved anything or everything else. But that's the position that at least some, if not more than some, Muslims take, right? They start with a presupposition that the Quran is inerrant and is the word of God, and until somebody else proves it wrong to their satisfaction, which they can't really articulate clearly anyway, they're going to keep believing it. And if you point out that commits them to believing everything, then of course, they're kind of speechless at that point. But I don't think they understand the implication of it either. And I've said that to a few people over the years in Speaker's Corner. So if you start with that presupposition and somebody's got to prove you wrong, then anybody can do the same. No, but the Quran is correct. Okay, but that's that anybody can make that claim, right? But if you're trying to make a rational argument, if you're just going to tell me your dogmatic view, well, that's fine, but I'm not really interested because anybody else can do exactly the same thing as you. You'd have to demonstrate that yours is likely true and everybody else is false. And you don't do that by saying it's true until you prove me false.
No, it's a miracle for me, really. This is the real miracle of Islam, that there are people out there who really do not know what they are doing and they believe it fervently. That's really.
I think that's the majority, though. I mean, okay, I haven't spoken to the majority. I'm using anecdotal evidence as which I'm then generalizing. But I would like to think I'm fairly close to the mark on that. Because I've spoken to hundreds of them, and you've spoken to thousands probably, and Slanderous probably thousands. So I'm less than all of you, but a good 300, probably 400, I would imagine, both at Speaker's Corner over the 2.5 years I was there, plus online and stuff. And I hear the same sort of thing from most of them. And those that claim to be educated or have read the Quran or whatever the case is aren't much better. They just try to give a more nuanced view, but they kind of say the same things in more flowery or either more philosophical language, but none of that sort of works for me. So it only works for like that young fella there who sort of doesn't really know that you could do those things.
Yeah, he didn't even know that there's a thing called a question mark. Okay, all right. This for me was amazing once again. I cannot understand it. I cannot get myself to believe that really people are so stupid. Really people are so gullible. Really people are so happy to not ask questions. Happy to just simply go with the flow and don't care about anything. That's.
But stops. Remember, the three of us have been doing this sort of thing for a while, and we've taken a bit more time. most people do things for pragmatic reasons, not for rational reasons. If you had to ask most people that are not us or that haven't looked into books or whatever the case is, they will very likely give you reasons that are not the rational, well thought out, well supported reasons. It'll be, hey, because my family did so, hey, because it gives me some value in my life. None of that means that it's true. So that's what you often hear from people who haven't really thought about any of these topics, right? So, and that's like emotional reasons, not rational reasons. The rational reason would be, hey, here's something that is likely true, and here are good reasons that I believe for my, believing whatever it is the case. Most people don't do that, but then again, they haven't looked into it, right? So they've believed it
Exactly.
for other reasons.
That's why I think, come on, there must be some basic curiosity. There must be something in you that says, hang on, let me find out. There must be, come on, you can't have a
No, the
billion
pragmatic.
people who
Why
don't
have
do
always
that.
that? No, it stops. The pragmatic reasons far outweigh the rational, and because most people aren't, their brains aren't trained to be rational, and critical in particular, then the pragmatic is far more important. If you have a brotherhood, right? If you've been like, abused, or you've been, goodness forbid, or some other unpleasantness has happened to you, and then you become part of a brotherhood and people take care of you and they ask questions about you, and it almost feels like you have a family. At this point, you do not care whether it's true. The fact that you feel good and that people care about you far overrides whether this is true. And in some respects, if you stand back, you can kind of understand why people would do that. Because we all want to feel good. And many people, or at least some people, if not many, will sacrifice rationality for the emotional feeling of positive, positive emotional feelings.
Even if it's just personal. And even if you can't test it, even if you can't know whether, it's true.
The rational stuff is much harder. It's a journey
This
that,
is,
it's an uphill journey. It's a tough journey. It's much easier to walk downhill or slide down, or to be carried down, or to go in a group or whatever the case is and feel good, like blindfolded. That's much easier if everybody else is going that way. It's much easier for people. What we kind of do, all of us here at least, is a much harder path, and most people don't want to do that because you could be wrong. You're going to buck the trend, and if you had friends before, you might lose them, and that's many people. That's too much of a like a weight to bear if that were the case.
yeah. All right, guys, give us a thumbs up. Let others know. And the funny thing is, SC Dawa is somehow they're no longer challenging non-Muslims or non-believers. It's quite funny. But like I said, if you want to have fun, go and watch some of the videos. They are allowing comments if you comment within them, so there's a lot of fun to be had. If you want, no, I clicked the wrong one. Sorry. No, this is the one that I wanted. Yay! Yeah, if you're trying to be super clever. All right, I've got a hadith of the week, which is quite funny because it was narrated by Nazi. It's probably Nazi or something.
Okay.
But it's it says N-A-Z-I, narrated by N-A-Z-I. So I've never heard this guy, or girl, or whatever. I've never heard this before. So there you go. It's Bukhari, volume 7, book 71, number 619, just in case you're wondering. It's a very short one. Abdullah bin Umar said, the Prophet said, fever. I mean, we're talking about COVID times now, okay? So fever is from the heat of hell. So put it out with water. And Nafi added, Abdullah used to say, oh, Allah relieve us from the punishment when he suffered from fever. So this is, there you go. Fever is from the heat of hell. So you just need some water. And all is well.
Oh dear. They are
This
so
is
in
how
need of
people
modern
actually-
medicine, right?
This is why Islam you can associate with medicine. Didn't you know? Didn't you know? No, I didn't know. No, nobody knows. All right, guys. Thank you very much. This has been the Gin and Tonic Show. Join us next week on the 10th of July, where we're going to be continuing with our Dawa in action. Well, hopefully we're going to have another video, also a short one, and maybe some more tactics, strategies, or whatever, and then we'll see what else we can do for you. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Goodbye, panel. Goodbye, everybody. And if you want to come to Discord.
We'll see you there.